And we think of the limitations as this terrible thing, but limitations are exactly, in a lot of ways, what makes life worth living. I mean, if you're going to live a trillion years, let's say, how important is today? How important is tomorrow? How important is the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that? And you can see where all of a sudden a trillion years of meaningless days, unimportant days come together and can make it a really meaningless life, even if it was a trillion years. If you're only going to live another, 50 years, all of a sudden you can start to realize that every day now starts to matter. And if every day matters, then that means every minute matters. And every minute matters, and every second matters. And so everything matters. But that gives you an opportunity to make the life meaningful, because it gives you an opportunity to do the meaningful things. Now, there will be times when, going back to what we're saying, you can't always do the things that you really, really want to be doing. True. Why? Because there are things that there are small picture things, and then there are big picture things. And if you're not doing the things that you should be doing, you're never going to achieve the big picture things. You're going to be sacrificing the small picture things all along the way. So you need to achieve the big picture things. So that therefore means that even if it feels like right now you're not doing what you want to be doing, you can still find a way to find something meaningful and useful in that minute, in that moment. And I don't just mean like something distracting, which by the way is like a lot of what our entertainment is. A lot of the things that we're doing instead are exactly that. It's distraction. And if we go back, a few years from now and ask the question, what were you doing back then? I have no idea. And I talk to people now. I'm talking about you. I was just talking on Friday to somebody who, he wasn't my student, but he came here, and he would tell me that he just doesn't remember much of what he did in high school. He doesn't remember much of what he did. I just kind of messed around most of the time. I'm like, what'd you get out of it? He didn't remember. Couldn't remember to save his life. And then he was sitting there staring, and he just kind of goes, holy crap, that's sad. That's depressing. I go, yeah, a little bit. And this is a guy who I knew when he was here. He just wasn't my student. And everyone knew this guy. I didn't even know the guy's real name. I only know him by his nickname. But it was interesting because he has a perspective of being separated, not by 20 years, but by like 5 years? Yeah, I think 5 years, 4 or 5 years or so. And so much of life is exactly that. It's distraction. It's distracting us from what? Well, from the bigger picture things. And every bit of a distraction that doesn't fulfill these things that we say that we want to become as immortal. And all of these things, by the way, I wrote the word up here, becoming. In other words, it's a thing that we have to perpetually work towards. Fulfillment, achievement, purpose, usefulness, thrill. These are things that we're always having to become. It's never like you presently have a useful life and you're presently in usefulness. But what are you? Are you tomorrow? And if these are the things that do make life, these are the things that we desire, understand that these are all of the things that are us trying to become godlike, to become immortal. Why the thrill? To overcome death. To have that thrill of, I was shot at and I survived it. I jumped off of a cliff and I survived it. I faced death, I survived it. Achievement, to overcome, to become stronger, almost immortal, to become so strong. Purpose, to have a reason for being here. What is the purpose of the gods? It's just one thing, to be. That's it. The rest of us have to find a purpose. We have to find a reason to be here. The gods just are. And the desire for the purpose is heightened, or the need for a purpose is heightened when we recognize the incredible brevity of life, how short life really is. I think it's for myself, how best to live, when you really understand the shortness of life, how best to live just inevitably becomes the question. And that's a thing that if you really internalize it can strike you as a thing that's just unspeakably sad in a life that's as short as ours is. And every second that you're distracted, you're not finding this, you're not working towards this purpose, which means it's wasted life. Because if this is what makes life meaningful, then every second of a distraction from these things is wasted life. And there's almost nothing sadder than a wasted life. These things for sure. An unfulfilled life, incredibly sad, depressing, man. Lack of usefulness. My God. I don't know how to say this nicely. And I don't mean this in a terrible way. I mean this in a really exasperated, like existential way. Please understand, I mean this with all the love in the world. Some of you are incredibly useless. And I don't mean that like you somehow you have no value. You have value, but just by virtue of the fact that you're alive and you're a human, you have value. But what's your use? Right now, you're not going to have a lot. Of course. But now start thinking about people in your life who are older. Do they have a use? Do they have a? Now, I'm not saying like you like them, or you can still like someone who doesn't have a usefulness, but they're useful. They're useless to people around them. They're not useful to their family. They're not providing. They're not useful emotionally to people around them. They're not useful to the world. That they're not producing anything. They're not useful to themselves. And there's almost nothing sadder than a useless man. I mean, I hear people complain about this all the time about men. Oh, they're useless. Yeah, largely, yeah. A lot of them are. A lot of women are completely useless also, because they're not fulfilling some kind of a use or some kind of a purpose, some kind of a meaning. And it doesn't have to just be for yourself, but once you can be useful to yourself, which is, of course, is the first thing you should be doing, then you can become useful to people around you once you've taken care of yourself. But these are the things that intuitively strike people when they fall into depression. I don't feel like I have a use. I don't feel like I have a purpose. I don't feel like I have a meaning. I'm not fulfilling the things I want to fulfill. I'm not achieving the things I want to achieve. I'm emotionally down. It's the complete opposite of all of this. And so what your usefulness is, you have to figure it out, find it out, and be useful. And there are a lot of ways that you can be useful to people. But it's having to set out to be useful. Because if you feel like you have some kind of a use, then you feel like you have some kind of a purpose and a meaning. And without that, it's tough to get up in the morning. It's tough to do anything. So, how do you become more godlike? Fulfill those things. You can't live forever. You can live a little longer. You can even live a little bit longer metaphorically. We're still talking about Seneca. 2,000 years later, some of us are. And he's still of use. He's still of use, man. Some of us are alive right now and we're not of any use at all. So become useful to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to your community. Expand out from there. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Monday. Didn't mean for it to go that way, but it did.